Great.
Wait 20
Well,
seconds. So no, wait.
20 seconds. Yeah,
No, you can go ahead.
I
Oh.
can. All right, perfect. Well, welcome to our second outreach event for Rajdat. We're so excited that you are here. I'm going to just talk a little bit about the background. Rajdat was the brainchild of Dina and Glenn Swanson, and then they were kind enough to include myself and Dr. Gibson in there. So we have anthropology, engineering, and physics come together, and then we immediately reached out to the Grand Rapids Public Museum and started a collaboration to create this public symposium for space exploration. We were very lucky in our second year and from the second year onwards to be sponsored by a grant through the Michigan Space Grant Consortium that allows us to bring this 2-day event to you guys free of charge. It has included some wonderful presentations so far, more to come this afternoon. We kept it in this time frame because of the fantastic weather in Michigan in February. No, that was not the reason. It was because this is the time frame of a lot of big events in NASA, but also around Roger B. Chaffee's birthday, and unfortunately the accident with Apollo 1 as well. So we wanted to honor Roger B. Chaffee's memory and create a conference on space exploration and really prove and sort of give a large community of people who enjoy space-related stuff to come and have a place to engage. One part that we were very, very clear on right from the beginning is we were very interested in having some kind of outreach for schools and a design challenge for Rajdat, and that slowly evolved into the Design That challenge. And so today we're going to talk and present to you some of the wonderful entries from our 4th through 6th graders from Grand Rapids Montessori, particularly from the 3 classes. And I want to give a shout out to these teachers who, they're rock stars. What can I say? In this day of COVID, they corralled their kids into presenting and created some really wonderful projects that we can't wait to share with you. So big shout out to Michelle Holiday, James Emperor, and Joe Uzarski. Thank you so much for all your help. We could not do this without you. And then also we want to give a shout out to the GVSU NASA Micro G Next Challenge team from the School of Engineering. And then at the end of this presentation, we're going to have some Q&A opportunities with the students from engineering who participated in this challenge, and they'll be bringing their design to you as well. So we're really excited. So buckle up and enjoy this presentation.
So my name is Karen Gibson. I'm one of the co-organizers of the Roger That conference. And I had the distinct honor of creating STEM kits. We were able to use the grant money, redesignate the grant money designated for catering and use that to build STEM kits to send out to JRPS schools. So we sent 100 kits out. So the kits included equipment for doing experiments on reflection, refraction, and diffraction. And we had these very special Roger That diffraction grading glasses made with the Roger That logo on them. You can kind of see them in one of the pictures there. And we also included instructions and bundled them all in a kit and packaged them all and delivered them to the schools, who then dispersed them to the students for both hybrid classes and to do in virtual learning in their online classes.
Yeah, and I do want to sort of give a shout out to Karen. She very kindly said we, but she was pretty much the person who did most of all of this because of COVID restrictions. We weren't able to meet in person and do this. So I do want to sort of really commend her on this effort.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Karen. I want to talk a little bit about the Design That challenge. The way the Design That was set up, we envisioned this as a design challenge for 4th through 8th graders. We really wanted to hit that crucial middle school, late elementary school level. We wanted to encourage students to really think about space exploration, and we wanted to also hit some of the Michigan education standards so that the teachers, there would be some way for them to document their kids' the learning that the kids did through this. And so we kept it very open-ended. We had suggestions of what kinds of problems they could focus on: humans in space, communities in space, robots in space, and then giving a shout out to Roger, the fifth Roger that, so V for virtual, we sort of also included simulations in space this year. Some of the examples of things that we suggested children could do was write a story, perform a play, design buildings, equipment, clothing, build physical devices, do some research on space and space exploration. So it was very open-ended, designed with the idea of letting the students and the teachers, working with the teachers, sort of define how they wanted to present for the Design That Challenge. What we did want them to do, though, is reflect on what they learned. And so there was a project reflection, page-long project reflection, where we asked them about things that they learned, things that they found interesting, things that they found particularly challenging, and some things that surprised them. And then because we're very big on this, we made sure that they included a properly sourced bibliography. But this was sort of this is the overall structure of the Design That Challenge.
And I would just like to add that one of the things that almost every team commented on being their main challenge was working virtually. And again, just a big shout out to all the teachers that were involved in helping the students do this work virtually. So the first the first project I would like to talk about is this Mining in Space project. The team name was 24 Karat Gold. And so this was a team of 2 people. One of them designed a spacesuit and the other designed a space probe for doing mining in space. And so they clearly did a lot of research. All the teams did very remarkable research. They learned that there were problems with getting cold in space. So they designed a Zeus spacesuit with electrically heated top and gloves. And then they also learned about gravity being a problem for mining. And so they designed these heavy pants, weighted pants with heavy boots. And so this is a picture of that spacesuit that one of the kids designed. Meanwhile, the other kid designed this probe for doing the mining itself. And so the probe was designed to be a car, like a car. It had a mining tool. The drilling tool was made of synthetic diamond. And they had storage bays for the mine materials. And the probe was specifically mentioned, the probe held 16 gallons of fuel. And they were surprised that different materials were needed for space. Rather than leather and steel, they needed to use other materials for space.
Wonderful. So I'm going to talk about the cosmic moon base, and you can see the illustration of what that cosmic moon base would look like. This moon base was designed by the Space Cats. The members included Micah, Trey, and Clinton, and they gave us a wonderful long description of everything that they had included in what this moon base would have. So they had thought about food. They had thought about the fact that you would need sustainable food source. And so they suggested a plant-based diet. And they had lots of plants suggested, like peas, tomatoes, potatoes, carrots, variety of beans. And they suggested plants to make veggie burgers and veggie hot dogs for people who actually preferred meat. And then how they would grow those plants was they would use a special light called an incandescent light bulb that would help the plants grow just like the sun would. And then they also said they wouldn't just be concentrating on food plants. They would also be including plants like ferns to increase the oxygen, to provide oxygen to the space station, and also help the space station look more, and the moon base look more like Earth. They knew they needed water as well, and so their solution for water was to use a filtration system that uses activated carbon to purify urine. And then they also had things for they had a health bay where we would have a med bay for stuff like diseases and cuts and scrapes. And they also realized that they needed artificial gravity, so they suggested using centripetal force and a rotating space station or a rotating part to create that centripetal force to create artificial gravity. They also had fitness rooms on this cosmic moon base because the lack of gravity does make you lose muscle mass, and so they were very cognizant of the fact that you needed to have fitness. The electricity would be using solar panels, and then there was also a room for entertainment, and so they really put in a lot of thought into this project. However, they did say that the hardest part was to make a drawing for this project. And so we're very glad that they did, because that is a very good drawing. So thank you very much.
And there was another project on artificial gravity by a team called the Moonwalkers. This was also a team of 2 young men. And this team did a lot of research on gravity and discovered, as many other of the other teams discovered, that centripetal force is very useful for creating gravity. So they had the idea to make gravity boots that were based on that idea of centripetal force, and they called their gravity boots rational rotation ankle discs. So the idea was that they would have a glass ball with a disc of spinning magnets, and by spinning those magnets, they had the idea that that would create gravity. So they did have the idea of centripetal force creating gravity, and that was very good. The other thing they did was they designed a spaceship that was specifically called Airfoil 3A, and they didn't have a picture of that, but they did make a video, and many of the teams made videos, and we'll be posting those after the conference is over. But this Airfoil 3A, they just went into great detail about how carefully designed curved surfaces, that's what made an airfoil. And I'm not sure what the part 3A referred to, but they didn't discuss that. But it was still a very interesting and project that showed a lot of research.
Yes, so the next project I'm going to be talking about is the team was called Allure, Ruby, Lila, Olivia, and Ava. And they did a project on why the reason why it's disappearing. And what they're referring to over here is from the project documentation, because they provided some very good project documentation. They made a movie as well, which we will be posting. But the reason why it's disappearing refers to the rings of Saturn. So they did some research, and they found a source that was talking about why the rings of Saturn were disappearing. And so they decided to they made a movie, and they decided to figure out a way to sort of get data for the disappearing rings of Saturn and send it back to Earth. And and during their research, they found that they could use robots. And then they also found, they found this very surprising, that there were robot space dogs. And so why not combine the two? And so they used robot space dogs to take pictures of the disappearing rings of Saturn and send those back to NASA so that scientists could study those and figure out why the rings are disappearing. Now, in their project documentation, they are going to continue their film by doing a part 2. So stay tuned. There is a sequel.
We had several of the projects that were very creative. This was a team that wrote an illustrated short story. So this team name was the Signs Girls, and their short story was called Sarah Marzipan Goes to Space. And this is the illustration that they submitted with their story, which I just found this illustration quite breathtaking. So the story was about a little girl named Sarah who, as a 9-year-old child, she learns about space, and she's really a space enthusiast. And she learns that it could take years to build a rocket, and that space is not supportive of basic human needs for oxygen, food, air, water, rest, and so forth. So that story had details about that. And then the story also included a piece where Sarah was very nervous about presenting her project to the class, but it went so well that inspired her for a future career as a science fiction writer. And so as an adult, then Sarah travels to space, but her rocket crashes on an unknown planet where she meets an astronaut and they get married and have kids. But Sarah is the one that builds a device to communicate back to Earth and get them rescued. And then she writes science fiction stories for the rest of her life. So this was a very creative project, and their documentation showed that they had learned a lot about space travel.
And science fiction is one of my favorite genres, so this is great. So this next project I'm going to talk about is called All Systems Go, and Eli, Charlie, Elliot, and Vincent did a lot of research on this project, and they had a little video They had 2 different project documentations, so they really put in a lot of effort. And they wanted to solve the problem of a spacesuit, but specifically for kids. They found that there was no such thing. And if you want families and you want more space exploration, then there was going to be a need for a spacesuit for kids. The current suits were too big. They were for adults, and this team really wanted to find out how to put kids in space. They also had some interesting ideas about backpacks and how to make them light, because one of the things they found was that the spacesuits were very heavy, and so they have the video talks about how to make the backpack light and how to include all the life support systems in there, and so it's very well done. But something that surprised them and actually surprised me was that there's just one company that makes all the spacesuits for NASA. They also sort of have a bibliography where they looked at a lot of websites on how to do this, and so we're looking forward to part 2 when hopefully they will make the spacesuit.
And then another team wrote a movie script about a robot that would collect trash. They discovered that there's a lot of trash debris in space junk, so-called space junk.
Oh, sorry.
No, go back to this. Okay, so I'm going to keep talking about, there. So this team name was Super Cool 2, and they had the idea to use robots to clean up trash. And they wrote a movie script about 2 kids, Ivy and Violet, who make a trash robot, and it's very successful in cleaning up the trash. And that they communicate with Roger B. Chaffee about their trash robot. And something that surprised them is that there's a lot of space junk, like broken up satellites and space stations and space shuttles and so forth. And their movie script was really creative, and they also built this trash robot, the model of the trash robot. And there was a lot of glitter involved in their movie script. I don't see any glitter involved in their model, but there was a lot of mention of glitter. So,
yeah, sorry about that. I'm running the show, and it's a twitchy trigger finger on that one. Sorry. So the next one I'm going to talk about is by the team name is Super Cool 2. Which I guess the Super Cool refers to Ali and Mira, who presented about Jupiter's future communities. So Ali and Mira researched if you could live on Jupiter, and their solution was that you could if you built a dome around one of the spots that you picked, and the dome was because clearly there is a problem with the air on Jupiter, and so we'd have to create a more breathable air, and so it would be under that dome, and they could put a community under that dome. Their most challenging part was trying to create an environment that sustained human life, but I think the dome idea was really good. And something surprising they learned about while researching their project was that maybe instead of focusing on Jupiter, that they could maybe focus on Europa, which is one of the moons, and which seems to have that they would have more success at creating a community and living on Europa. So that was Jupiter's Future Communities by Super Cool 2.
And then a young man named Raymond did a project on Earth relocation. And so he knew that Earth is getting polluted. And so he had an idea of what would happen when Earth is overpolluted, that we could live on a space station and live on that and go find another planet. And so he actually built a model of the space station. The space station, and this is a picture of the model from the video he submitted. The space station, which he called ER for short, uses rotational gravity and has a giant parachute and an inner core made of inner core to hold the rocket fuel. And the silver dots that you see there represent communities of people who farm, write, and provide therapy. And it was intriguing to me that he realized that people in space would need therapy. What was most surprising to him was that rotational gravity isn't just science fiction, but it's actually a real way to create artificial gravity.
So we have the next project from Ella, which is titled, How Would You Live on Planets in the Milky Way? And Ella focused on the solar system and built a wonderful website. I would really urge you to look at it. We'll put the website up. And she reported on how life would look on each planet in our solar system. And she also included not just the planets, but she also included the sun. She did clay models of each of the planets. So you can see over here the clay models of Venus, of Jupiter, and of Earth. And she had fun facts about each of the planets in her website. And there's one on Mercury that I really liked, where she says, "Is there a place on Mercury where it is cold enough for us to live on it? Yes, it is where it is always in the shadows, but there it is too cold, so you would probably want to live right where it starts to get shady." So I think that's a really excellent idea. She also built a clay model of the type of food you might want to eat while you were there, and how you would grow it on the space station, and had fun facts about each planet, like it would take 12 years to get to Neptune, and the fact that Jupiter has 4 rings and 67 moons. So this was How Would You Live on Planets in the Milky Way by Ella.
And there was also a project by Julian. Julian made a video. Julian built a model of a spaceship, and the space station has, so astronauts could have a place to do research in space. And the space station had various features like an advanced computer, living quarters, an airlock, and an observation module. And then Julian also designed this logo and made a video, a beautiful video, silent, well, the video had music, space music as the background, and you could not see Julian, but you just saw the space shuttle moving through space, and both the interior and the exterior, so you could see all the features that Julian had designed. So
that's wonderful. I was so impressed by the creativity in lockdown. Can I just say this was amazing. So the project I'm going to be talking about is by Maya, and it's called Let's Look Closer and Let's Think Bigger. And Maya's documentation was wonderful. And one of the things she said is how she likes stars, and that she talks about what stars being huge celestial bodies made mostly of hydrogen and helium, and how the fact that the sun is a star, just a really big one. And she wants to help people to look at stars closely, and particularly astronauts, because she says astronauts look at stars all the time, but they're very far away. So what about if we could make it look closer? So Maya's solution was to build something called the observation screen, and it's for looking at stars closer, but still from a safe distance. So it's sort of a way to magnify the stars. But then Maya went one further step, and she says that if you want to look at space rocks, then I have another machine for you, and it's called the observation tank, which is a big glass container, which has a strong seal on the top of the tank, so you can look at space rocks. And you could keep it in the tank, and there would be some artificial gravity in the tank, so you could go into the tank and the rocks wouldn't float away. She said that she hopes you enjoy her project, because she really certainly had fun making it, and we could tell. Thank you, Maya.
And then a team called the Best Friend Duo did a project on using robots to grow plants on Mars. And so that project included a video with fun facts about fun facts, and done in a Q&A form. And they clearly did a lot of good research about the challenges of growing plants on Mars. So they knew that they would need a robot that would, knew that they would need to use robots, so they aren't affected by the temperatures. And they also understood that the robots would have to have compartments to carry seeds and soil. They did a very good job with the research. One surprising thing they learned was different kinds of robots, that there are different kinds of robots, and that rovers, in fact, are robots. They also had a Q&A part of their video, which was really charming. And the video ended with bloopers of their starts and stops that they decided to include on their video. So
bloopers are my favorite parts of any movie anyway. So that was wonderful and very, very creative. Thank you. The project I'm going to be talking about was by Sam, and it's called the Stargazer. And Sam's idea was to make a robot that could go into space and send pictures back to Earth. The idea was that the robot would identify small or unknown objects and send warnings about possible comets or asteroids that could be a danger to Earth. And the problem it was solving was to warn scientists and people of Earth of dangerous objects that could destroy it. Sam looked at lots of different websites, NASA, lifescience.com, and he learned a lot and read a lot about robots in space and why it's better to send robots because they don't require air and food and water. And he actually created a really nice robot. I think it has a lot of things that if you watched Meenakshi Wadhwa's talk yesterday or Brent Boss's talk, it has a vacuum to suck up rock samples. There's a camera. A lot of these things that have been shown to be on actual robots in space is something that Sam put in. One of the interesting facts that he learned was that it only takes 18 minutes for a photo to travel 209 million miles from outer space to Earth. So this was Stargazer by Sam.
And then a young man named Deacon, who is shown here, built a model of a rocket ship, and you can even see the flames coming out of the bottom of the rocket ship. And he called his rocket ship G-Force 2000, and he was inspired by Elon Musk, and so he talked a lot about Elon Musk in his video, and he clearly did a lot of research on Elon Musk. His rocket ship idea was to take 25 people to Mars, and he knew that was a problem, that it would be such a small number of people, but he thought that that was the best that could be done. And then he discussed problems like food and water during the journey and once they got to Mars.
Whoops, sorry. All right. My project that I'm going to talk about is by McKenna, and McKenna did a project called Like Space in Your Hands, where she did a very comprehensive look at all the stuff that humans would need in space and how they could be in space. So McKenna had a project reflection, but she also had a really nice essay on what the astronauts would need. So one of the things she talks about is how astronauts need to exercise 2 hours every day in space to keep their bodies healthy. She also found that astronauts, the human spine stretches in weightlessness, which is something that Dr. Chow, Leroy Chow, talked about yesterday as well. And so astronauts come back a few inches taller. And then she talked about how one of the things that she found very surprising is that there are no cookies or bread or soda allowed because on board the space station, because little crumbs that fall from these kinds of foods can go into the spacecraft and get stuck in little space buttons, which is a big problem. She also found what was surprising to her was that in space, astronauts are weightless, and so they can sleep in any orientation. However, they have to attach themselves so they don't float around and bump into something. And so space station crews usually sleep in sleeping bags that are located in crew cabins. So this was Like Space in Your Hands by McKenna, and it showed a lot of really deep dive into the research of how astronauts live in space.
And then there was another project by Ava, who wrote and enacted with Legos two-act play about traveling to a distant planet, Prometheus, and terraforming the planet. So Act 1 was about the journey to the planet, and she assigned roles to each member of the spaceship team, and it was clear that she had done some research on what roles would be necessary to fly to a distant planet. And the second act was about terraforming the planet and the people who arrived later to benefit from that terraforming that had happened. So it was a really creative play. We're going to be posting that complete video on our YouTube channel.
And then I would like to talk to you about showering in space that Claire found fascinating. She was very surprised to know that astronauts can go sometimes up to 6 months without showering in space because they're not allowed to, there's a limited amount of water they can use. They also have to be very careful with any water that they use because it could get into the electrical equipment. And she found that the astronauts had a shower on Skylab that used pressurized water spray, but that they had to be really careful when using it, and it took up to 2 hours to take a shower. And so the things that she found was that sometimes they just didn't take a shower. And so she came up with an idea of showering with air, where she developed the air body cleaning system, the ABCS. And the system uses can help astronauts stay clean without using any water. It uses air pressure to blow dirt and dead skins loose from the body. And then there's a vacuum to suck up the loose dirt into the filtration system that then removes any particles from the air, keeping the air in the space station clean. And there's a little model of her device. And she had a lot of fun and very creative idea of showering in space. She also has a really fun video that we will post that has some really high kind of production qualities, I have to say.
And then our final project was a project on future robots by Asher. And Asher was motivated by this project because he thinks robots are really cool, and he hopes that launching more robots will help to find new galaxies. He also hopes NASA will create air supply so that we can live on other planets. And he was surprised that they have actually launched a new rover. And so Perseverance was something that surprised him. So this is the end of our Design That slides. And so I would just like to say that all of the kids did amazing research into the project. They're all winners. And we are going to be recognizing all of them with participation prizes. We usually have a ranked juried prize and a People's Choice Award, but this year they were all such amazing projects that we're going to be recognizing all of the students with certificates and participation prizes. So,
and all done under very challenging circumstances.
All
so
done under very challenging circumstances. This was such an amazing feat to get all of these wonderful projects during the pandemic. So,
and thank you to all the teachers, because I was receiving emails at very odd hours of the night as well. So thank you very much. We appreciate everything that you did.
Yes.
I'd like to move on and talk a little bit about our engineering students who are going to talk about their NASA Micro-G Next project. And the Micro-G Neutral Buoyancy Experiment design teams, which is the NASA Micro-G Next, it challenges undergraduate students to design, build, and test a tool or device that addresses an authentic current space exploration challenge. The overall experience includes hands-on engineering design, test operations, and public outreach. And so we're very excited that the students are going to be here to talk about their project and answer questions. The teams present their projects, and then NASA picks about 20, I think this year they picked 27, but in the past it's been anywhere between 20, 25 teams to go on to the next step. And then they test in the simulated microgravity environment of the NASA Johnson Space Center Neutral Buoyancy Lab. And that's the picture that you can see over here. This is one of actually Grand Valley's teams. Grand Valley has qualified in the top 20 for the last 5 years with smaller schools like Berkeley, Purdue, and Virginia Tech. So we're very excited. And now I've realized that I think I didn't share with sound. So I might have to stop sharing and reshare this with sound. I'm very sorry about that. Give me just a minute to figure that out. And I will.
Well, Samantha's figuring that out. I would just like to add that there was an error on the Jupiter slide, and that project was actually by Allie and Kennedy. So,
oh, I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine, but we just wanted to make that note. So, because we appreciate all of the hard work that all of the students did, and we don't want to not credit their work appropriately.
Okay, can you see this okay?
Yes.
Okay, so hopefully this will work now.
Hi, I'm Sienna Janicki, and I'm here with Grand Valley State University's team for NASA's Micro-G Next Challenge. The challenge's goal is to create a stabilizing device to help take rock samples on the moon. The main parts of this challenge are that it needs to be able to take a rock sample, and this is done by using a core drill and a diamond drill bit to be able to cut through any type of rock that's necessary. The stabilizing device itself needs to fit within a 6-inch by 6-inch cylinder due to the limited space capacity on the space shuttle. This challenge takes place at the Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory in Houston, Texas, to simulate conditions of a moon environment. It's very large, however, we won't be able to attend in person this year due to COVID. Here are some underwater pictures of the laboratory and some of the simulations that take place there. This is our team, the GVSU Moon Miners. The official challenge name is the Lunar Surface EVA Operations Lunar Sample Coring Device. We are one of 27 teams that made it to the competition stage from across the country. Our design includes a 3-legged stabilizing device with a spring compression. This helps indicate the 3-inch sample size that is required. We also have a handle that flips out to the side to help the astronauts get a firm grounding when drilling. And all of this is mostly concealed, so none of the rock dust can interfere with the moving components such as the springs. As you can see in the pictures, this is our design. You can see when the drill is attached to the stabilizing device and the handle is inward. You can also see when the handle is outward when the astronaut would be holding onto it. And finally, in the top right corner is when the stabilizing device is compressed. Our design was created with some major space obstacles for astronauts. That being that the spacesuit is very hard to maneuver and is very bulky. It has very large gloves and is hard to grasp things. Also, it's very hard to force downwards, which is necessary for drilling, and is very hard to produce in minimal gravity or zero gravity. Also, as we stated before, the size constraints are very important because of the small space on the space shuttle. With these obstacles in mind, we created some solutions that could help. We created our design with a 3-legged device, or a 3-leg device with spiked bottom to minimize the movement and optimize the stability. We have an extra collapsible handle to provide astronauts with a leverage point to be able to force down when drilling. We also stuck to the very specific and strict size requirements and also could be collapsible. We are very excited to keep moving forward with our design, and if you would like some more information on some of the NASA activities, information, videos, or some of the other information that they have, we provided the link and we'd encourage you to check it out.
And so finally, we'd like to
Hi,
introduce
I'm
the
Sienna Energy,
NASA
and I'm here with Grand Valley State
miners
University's team for NASA.
and say there's enough space for everyone at Roger that. Oops. Sorry. So we're going to have a Q&A with the moon miners now, and we have the moon miners include Sienna Janicki, Jenna Stolzman, David Kalaskis, Danny Weller, Chad Brown, Paul Eggerding, and Connor Koss. So thank you, everyone. I will stop sharing. Yeah, hi, David. Thank you for joining us. And I know, I can see Sienna's here as well. So yeah, do we have any questions? You can feel free to raise your hand or ask a question in the chat. Either way is fine. But if not, I could actually go. We watched Brent Boss's talk just before this, and he was talking about how the surface of the asteroid Bennu that they landed on was almost like snow. That was the analogy. The moon rock, this core sample, did you have was there any idea of what kind of surface or what kind of stabilizing surface you had? Was there something that you had to take into account? Oh, you have to. Oh, did we not unmute you? Hold on. I'm unmuting David. Hopefully you can unmute yourself, and also Sienna.
Hi, how's it going?
Okay, good. Sorry. We totally have the Zoom thing nailed, by the way.
That's all right. To answer your question, yeah, so the moon has many different types of geological rocks, essentially. So the lunar surface itself has a combination of jagged rocks, lots of dust environment, kind of like what you just mentioned with the kind of snow-like on the asteroid. So kind of the issues there are we're really focusing on those harder rock samples. So those feet that are on the very bottom of our design are meant to kind of grip that kind of harder surface in order to stabilize the main core bit this way. So during drilling operations, it doesn't kind of move around on us.
All right, great. We have a question from the audience. How did you find out you were chosen? Did you get updates and as you progressed through the stages, or how did you find out when it was all decided?
Yes, so during October, our final design proposal was submitted to NASA. That was kind of the required date that had to be kind of finished. That included our whole conceptual design, and we had to kind of create a full proposal that got sent in. And then was the waiting period, right? So we had to wait kind of all of November and into about halfway into December. And then so NASA kind of takes those proposals, goes through them, kind of decides which ones are worth kind of pursuing further. So in December, around halfway through, they kind of put together a small presentation and kind of announced all the winners for us. So then once we were kind of selected and chosen, now the real work kind of gets started. And that's where we actually have to build our device and go through testing and kind of get it ready to send out.
All right. And that's coming up in May, isn't that right?
In June for us.
In June.
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. So I have a question. I don't see any hands up, but I have a question about the three legs. How did you choose to have 3 legs on the, and why did you choose that?
Yes. So during our initial kind of concepting phase, we kind of got together a group of us on our team, and just kind of classic on a whiteboard, we went through a bunch of different kind of designs, and we kind of settled on that one as kind of almost mimicking a tripod for a camera, and showing how that's kind of almost not a standard, but a very good way to kind of stabilize a central focal point. So that we kind of decided to go with that. And we believe it's going to be kind of the best route to stabilize a single core sample collection device.
All right, Karen has a question. Go ahead, Karen.
Yes, could you talk about the choice of springs and how you chose the material for the springs?
Yeah, so specifically for the springs, NASA, or on the moon specifically, the gravity is a lot less than on Earth, correct? So about specifically 1/6. So we designed our spring system there to incorporate essentially we're kind of shooting for about 20 pounds at the moment of kind of a spring force. So kind of the difference between Earth and, that microgravity environment. On Earth, we would probably put down a lot more higher spring force to push down on it. But on the moon, they are going to be kind of essentially more weightless. So they were going to kind of require a little bit less weight to kind of push down on it. So we wanted our springs to be a little bit lighter. And right now we are currently going back and forth on a couple different materials. Our current spec'd out springs are made of just spring steel, very, very thin gauge spring steel. But we still are kind of going through the testing phase on that to verify that that's what we want to go with.
That's wonderful. Well, I have a question from the audience, and this is for all. I think there's 3 of you here today that are on this team. So this is for all 3 of you. We just saw a lot of great ideas from young kids. Were the moon miners into space stuff when they were kids?
Sienna, would you like to take this one?
Well, it's all 3. So why don't you go one at a time?
Yeah, so it's really good to kind of keep kids involved and keep kids looking forward to kind of all the opportunities that NASA has involved, and kind of that as part of this whole project, the outreach portion of it. It's good just to kind of give kids exposure to different kind of ideas and see what's kind of out there to kind of just push towards the STEM fields. And hopefully they enjoy it and, spur that creative kind of bone in everyone that can kind of contribute to then the overall NASA and space exploration.
So David, did you come to like space stuff, or so you weren't very much into it as a kid?
I didn't start out that way.
Okay.
As I kind of got older, I kind of got an interest in kind of planes, and then from there, I kind of really enjoyed the whole aerospace kind of scene, and that kind of pushed me towards that whole engineering route and specifically towards the aerospace route.
Thank you, Sienna.
I think it's kind of similar. I think a lot of kids are interested in space, and then I feel like most kids that end up doing engineering, like as young children, they love space. They love the idea of astronauts and just
Yeah.
all the equipment. So I was definitely one of those kids. I like aviation, or when I was a kid, I loved planes, loved helicopters, and even trains, but it wasn't as big of a interest as those things, but it was definitely still fun.
All right. What about you, Chad?
I have a little different experience. I have one vivid memory of myself as a kid, and that was our 5th grade. I don't know what it was called, but we had to put on a presentation about a famous person, and I think it was for a science class. I think it had to be a famous person that was somehow related to science, and I picked Buzz Aldrin, who was one of the famous astronauts back in the day. And I just remember making like out of a bicycle helmet, I made a space kind of helmet thing and dressed up in all white, pretended to be an astronaut for the day. And we had to do a whole research presentation on just the person you chose. So I learned a lot about him, and that kind of got me started into the space scene, and kind of ever since there I was just fascinated by it, and have always liked planes and rockets and space growing up, and that brought me to kind of where I am today, working on something for NASA.
That's wonderful. Is working at NASA? I know that yesterday they talked about how part of this process has given you ways to interact with engineers at NASA. Has that been valuable for all of you? Are you thinking this is where I want to be when I grow up? Would you like to work at NASA?
I think we'd all enjoy it. Like that's kind of a dream job to work at NASA. So our advisor that we have is advised us not to work directly for NASA, but work as a contractor for them. So we make more money. So that's good advice.
I have to talk to Sanjivan about the advice he's giving our young engineers. No,
It was
no.
actually, it's not Sanjivan. It was the person that NASA gave us. It wasn't him. It was.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, I mean, did you guys watch Perseverance touchdown on Mars? Did you watch
Yeah.
the?
Yes, absolutely. I was actually just leaving class, and I kind of sat down and turned on the live stream and kind of sat down for the hour and watched the entire process. And it was really cool to kind of see that, classic scene of everyone kind of jumping up and cheering and at JPL, and kind of seeing that firsthand live it never gets old.
Oh yeah, I know. I completely agree. Chad, is NASA the dream?
Yeah, and I think it has to be. It's a long road to get there, but if you can do it, props to you.
Yeah, I know. We watched the stream as well, and I was just yesterday, right after this was Dr. Chow's presentation, so he jumped on in the last bit, and he talked about his experience in the neutral buoyancy tank and things like that. So it was kind of a nice tie-in. But yeah, we all talked about Perseverance, so we could not have timed this better. I don't see any more questions, and we still have about a couple of minutes left on this. So anybody else wants to raise a hand? Otherwise, I have lots of questions. I always have questions. So I know that you worked. You're all mechanical engineers. This is through ASME, but did you have to? Oh no, you're not. Okay, go ahead. Tell me what the makeup of the team was.
Yes. So go ahead.
I'm the EE, so.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
We have a PDM and then electrical engineering, and I'm electrical. So.
Oh, nice. Okay. So were you then sort of outside a little bit of your comfort zone when you were in this? Because I don't see any electrical necessarily components.
There wasn't any electrical components to this, so it was nice to learn a little bit of a field outside of my own, get a little bit of extra knowledge.
Yeah, very nice. Well, that's all, and we're at 1:50, I think, already. Are we done? Sort of, or yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. Thank you so much, you guys, for coming in and talking about your project. And good luck with the testing and everything. And good luck with at NASA. NASA was my dream job. It still is a little bit of my dream job, but. And going to space also, except I throw up on roller coasters, so I don't know if that's
Ooh.
work so well. But thank you so much for
Yep, thank you
everyone
for
for
having us.
coming. Thanks, Michelle. Oh, hi, Michelle. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. We continue with Steve Cruzy at 2 p.m.
All right. Well, see you later.
Thank you.